Paint a picture, really, if you will, about your
Sure.
childhood there.
Yeah, I was born in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and both of my parents are still living, thank goodness, but they were both educators, elementary educators. I have two brothers, one older and one younger, and we were just your typical Southern Baptist family, raised in the South, and grew up loving sports. My brothers played, I played, whatever season it was. We were watching on the television, and just was instilled a lot of Christian values and stay humble and but
Mm.
be competitive and work hard and don't depend on anybody for anything. But we were a very loving, competitive family, and just very fortunate that we're all still very close.
And what took precedence, church or sport?
Well, in my house, it was church.
Mm.
And that's when you went to Sunday school and church, and then you went to Sunday night school and Wednesday. And we were very, very active in the church. And at that time, sports didn't interfere with church like they do now, where everybody's trying to specialize in one sport. And you've got these 6-year-old kids running around from Saturday morning to Sunday night. Yeah, it was church was more important, but I think there was a lot of respect with church by the sports affiliates.
So, and you were a very athletic family, were you? With the, you talked about competition. Was
Yeah,
it from a very young age? It was sporting competition, a healthy competition.
it was. So my mom's oldest sister, I talk about her quite a bit as a mentor to me. She won the first women's NCAA college title in 1971, and that gave her the honor to coach the U.S. World Team in 1973. That went on to Moscow, Russia to play, and they won a silver. So she was on that side of the family. Then my dad's brother was drafted straight out of high school at Long Beach Polytech in California to play for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we just were a very sports oriented, immediate family and extended family. And no matter what side of the family we went to visit, we were watching whatever was on television that was
Right.
impacting sports. Yeah.
But was there any ever sense that as a girl, you weren't going to be in the same sort of league as the boys, or was there? It sounds like you had a female mentor there.
I did. And no, I was always playing with my brothers and their buddies. And I actually played basketball in 5th grade. I was the first girl to play in the city league because they didn't have a girls' team. And so my aunt's the one that asked me, she said, "Are you going to go out and play basketball?" And I said, "They don't have a girls' team." She said, "Go out for the boys' team." So I
Mm.
did. And I played with the boys for 3 years. But, I think I could hold my own with them. So, yeah.
And you got a basketball scholarship, didn't you, to uni in Alabama? Tell us what university was like.
It taught me a lot of life lessons. It took me 25 years to tell my coach that what he was saying was right when he said, "I'm trying to teach you more about life than I am basketball."
Mm.
And at that time, you hate your coach because they're making you run and they're disciplining you and everything else. But it taught me so much more about life at the university.
Tell us what life lessons you learned there.
Extra effort, mental toughness. Don't blame others, should I say. You have to look at yourself in the mirror first. And if you fail, it's okay. Just don't like the taste of it and work harder to not make that same mistake over and over. But, evaluate yourself, look in the mirror.
And I can just feel in every sentence there's a real determination and strength about you. I just wondered if you ever felt that you pushed yourself too far in sports. Was that something you had to contend with?
I didn't. I think it's because I loved the competition. I loved playing basketball and softball. And, every kid hates practice, right? But every kid hates homework. So if you don't prepare, doing your homework, you're not going to pass your test. And that's just kind of how I felt about practice onto the game. And I still implement that in what I'm doing now in the NFL. So no, I never felt like I pushed myself too much. I probably could have pushed myself harder.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you at the end of this for advice to other girls.
Sure.
3 words of advice. I can already see what they might be, but let's wait and see. And you were named an academic All-American. Just tell us what that means and how it felt.
It's crazy whenever you're in that moment. Like I love school, and I was one of those that never had to really study. until I got to college, and then I had to learn how to study. But I forgot that I was a All-American, academic All-American until my coach said, Terry, you know, you got this honor. And when you're in that moment, you don't realize how meaningful it is. It was just what I was doing in my life. But I believe it's such a great foundation to start with your studies. And my children are all very smart, and I'm grateful for that. But it just means that, you know, you're capable of doing a lot when education comes first.
You're listening to The Ladder on Times Radio with me, Cathy Newman. Joining me this week, the first woman to officiate in a Super Bowl game and the first full-time female official in NFL history, Sarah Thomas. She's about to share the ins and outs of her journey up the ladder. So tell me now, where did you start refereeing and how and why?
Great question. So after college playing basketball, I joined my brother in the basketball team that I'd been playing with in a men's league, and I was the only female in the men's league. I'd played in this league for 3 years, and one night a gentleman comes up to me and he says, I'm sorry about what happened last night. And I jokingly was saying, well, I was by myself. I don't know why you're apologizing. And he said, you don't know, do you? And I said, no. He said, they kicked you out of the basketball league. And I said, why? And he said, because you're a girl. And I said, well, I've been in this league for 3 years. Are they just now realizing that? So I asked, was anyone from my team there to vote? And he said, no. So I protested the vote, and it came down to a tie. And the tiebreaker was the preacher. And he asked the guy that had raised the vote to get me out of the league why he didn't want me in the league, Cathy. And my mouth gets ahead of myself sometimes. And so he said that, you know, when she posts me up or I post her up, it just feels funny. And so I just said, you know what, let me just save y'all a lot of heartache. I know that I'm gonna be out of this league, but I've got one thing to say before I leave. And I just looked at the guy and I said, you know what, as fast paced of a game as basketball is, if you get some type of sexual sensation out of this, you don't need to be in this league. So I kindly exited the building, right?
You
And
didn't
I
give them
called,
time to reply.
no, it's just, what's the use, right? So I left, I called my dad, and I was just furious. And I was like, I have played sports my entire life, and because I'm a girl, I can't play. And a couple of months later, I was on the phone with my older brother, and I said, what are you doing tonight? And he said, I'm going to a football officials meeting. And I said, can girls do that? And he said, I guess so, sis. Be there at 6 and don't be late. So I joined him. And when I walked into that room, and Cathy, I say all the time, I hated the officials when I played. And I know they probably hated me because I was that player that would push the envelope. But when I sat in that room for the first time and I listened to these guys take such pride in what they were doing to give back to the community and to sports, I was so intrigued. And then my competitive side, you know, I didn't know anything about the game of football. So there was that challenge, and I just fell in love with it. And here I go for 10 years in high school. And then I get hired in college. And then 7 years after working in college, I get hired in the NFL.
Amazing to hear you talk about how you faced down that sexism. I'll come back to that later. But 2007, you became the first woman to officiate or referee. I know there's a difference. Perhaps you'll explain that to me. But it was a major college football game. And 2 years later, you became the first woman to officiate a major college football game in 2009. Sorry, I've screwed this up. I'm just going to go back because I'm getting my chronology. Tell me, first of all, what is the difference between officiating and refereeing?
So referee is a position on the field. And in our world, we are all officials in the football officiating family. And each of us have a designated position. So I'm a down judge. There's a referee, umpire, line judge, and we have deep wings, back judge, side judge, and field judge. And of course, our replay guys. I can't forget about them in the booth. So we officiate. And I know there may be some sports that call it refereeing, but we are officials and we officiate because we have a referee as a position.
Right. I'm so glad that you explained that difference because I wasn't 100% sure. So in 2007, you became the first woman to officiate at a major college football game. 2009, the first woman to officiate a bowl game. So what do these firsts mean to you?
It means that I have done my job and the work ethic has been recognized. I didn't set out for the recognition. And that's what I love to tell anyone. If you're doing something in life just for the recognition, to have a title behind your name, to be the first, to set out to do it, you will step on anyone's toes to get up that ladder of success.
Mm.
But I say you won't stay there long because you will not have earned it the right way. And those toes you stepped on up the ladder will be the backside you will kiss on the way down. So I think it just shows your work ethic pays off, and the love of what you're doing, someone will recognize that.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And you got your first job as a pharmaceutical sales representative. That was alongside your work as an NFL officiator, 2013. Why did you need a second job?
It's just it's what the NFL has always required us to do. And I just think that there's not enough games in a season. Like, we're not full-time officials. And plus, in the world years ago, just the bias and people assuming that there could be something going on. And so if you have another income, it keeps it well balanced, Cathy. And now I'm able to really kind of stay closer to home. I do a little marketing job for a local family owned physical therapy group. I love giving back. I really do. And but I do a lot of speaking nationally, worldly, and I'm able to stay at home and not have to juggle too many. But it definitely just is well balanced.
So it's not about the money. It's not that you weren't getting paid the same as your male counterparts.
Well, I am getting paid the same. The NFL does it right. I am paid exactly
Good.
as the guys that are their sixth season. We're all paid the same, equally paid. I think I would probably professionally challenge someone if I wasn't equally paid to a male and I'm doing the same job. But the NFL did it right. But yeah.
Great. But you've talked about some of the sort of reactions you got when you were first starting out. Give us an insight, if you could, into the most flagrant example of where you've been treated differently because you're a woman in sport.
I I don't like to think of me being treated differently. Of course, I know I am. I know there were certain times, right? And so I have this motto too, that don't go trying to prove yourself to people. Just prove that you belong on your merit, and how you handle yourself and conduct yourself. And being combative really doesn't do anything for anybody. And so there would be people that would try to tell me I shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. And then the next day, that person would be doing X, Y, and Z. And of course, I would just mention something, like, hey, wrap it up, buddy, or whatever. I would just throw little things out there. And one of my male counterparts, he goes, you know what? He said, you have got more guts than a lot of the men do. He said, but I love how you go about it. And I believe that in life, no matter what you're doing, male dominated or all women, you have to have that confidence within yourself that you belong where you are, and don't try to just prove people wrong, or respect will come, and if it doesn't, you don't need to be around those people anyway.
I'm getting loads of advice coming from you already, but we're going to come back to that at the end. I can hear there's going to be lots of great tips you've got for girls and women wanting to get up the ladder. So let's talk about ascending the ladder and really bring it closer to the present day. In April 2015, you were hired as the first full-time female official in NFL history. And then 4 years later, the first woman to officiate an NFL playoff game. Did you make anything of those landmarks at the time? Raise a glass?
Yeah, when I got the call to be hired in the NFL, I was speechless. And a lot of people go, there's no way that you were speechless, but I was. I was like, okay, this is happening, and now I've got a job to do, right? And then being the first to work a Super Bowl, my family and friends, they were all like, Sarah, you're just kind of like somber. And I go, because I've got a job to do and I've got to prepare for this job. But those landmarks I look back on now and know how monumental they really are. And I had so many people with the Super Bowl texting me or sending me pictures that their daughter was so excited every time she saw me on the screen. She had never watched football, before, or people saying, I'm only watching the Super Bowl because you're on there. And reflecting back on that, that's huge. It's huge for women. And I also say it's huge for men, because I'm raising two young men, and I want them to respect a woman that's very independent and driven and successful, and not be intimidated by her.
So when you were making history, you weren't really thinking, oh my God, I'm making history. It was happening to you. And it's only really in retrospect that you see how big that was.
I would tell you, Super Bowl Sunday that morning, listen to my playlist. And the first song I went to was Rise Up by Andra Day. And when I heard the first lyrics, I got choked up. I got really emotional. And she just says you're in that merry-go-round, you're tired, and then I'm kind of like thinking about it, just that moment of I would do this 1,000 times again. I will rise up because I have a daughter, and we can all rise up at the end when she says that. And it's just like this hits home. Every word in that song just hit home.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how you prepare for those big games. Is there something psychologically you've talked about putting on your playlist? Is it a musical sort of workout you give yourself? What do you do?
I'm very, I guess, rain day, if you will. Like I do the same thing, routine, prep work. But as far as the Super Bowl and prepping for it, we in the National Football League, we prepare every Sunday that it's our Super Bowl. These are the players in the NFL, right? I mean, any given Sunday is fantastic. So the only thing that was different was, yes, it's called the Super Bowl. And I had 2.5 weeks to prepare for that game. Whereas during the regular season, I only have, a week to prepare for my next game. But it was really not a big shock because we're ready for it. And you work every year, every snap, that maybe one day you will get the call. And when you do get the call, you'll be prepared for it.
So you've got to be ready to go whenever.
That's right.
And you wear the uniform number 53. What's the significance of that number, if there is one?
There isn't. When I got into the developmental program in 2013 with the NFL, they gave me number 153. And when I got hired, we could kind of choose our number, and my boys wanted me to choose number 2 because that was their baseball jersey number at the time. Oh. The number 2 had already been taken. And so I just said, you know what, take the 1 off and put 53. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that now you're saying that, and being the first, I was 153. Now I'm just 53. Yeah.
You blew that one. So you've got 3 children who you've alluded to. Did you take time off work to have them? Was that a big deal?
I took just whatever my company allowed me at the time, 6 weeks, or if I had been there long enough, there was, I believe with Brady, I had 12 weeks, which was great. But Bridley and Bailey, they were just 6 weeks, put them back in daycare, and I had to go work.
And that's okay?
Yes, it's fine. I think that there's a lot of life lessons that I've instilled in my children, and the fruits of those labor, I'm able to see it in them now.
And one of those life lessons being that you're a trailblazer and a role model for girls and boys. As you said, boys have got to learn about strong women as well, right?
That's right. Just time management, and treat others the way that you want to be treated, and prioritize, and your work ethic, and how you go about handling tough situations. And they've seen that. They've seen when mom has been down or I've been criticized, and it matters, but then they see how I handle it with dignity and gracefully.
And just this month, you became the first woman to officiate in a Super Bowl. Tell us a little bit more about what was going on inside your head on the field that day.
I knew that I had to have it, the job. I had to do it with this elite crew that I had been selected to work with in Super Bowl 55. But walking the field out that tunnel, I kind of like flip a switch, if you will. As soon as I leave my home, I like transform. And then when I walk through the tunnel, it's just another element. I get really laser focused. I know I've got a job to do. But before the Super Bowl, I wanted to go and find my family. And I did. And my kids, it was perfectly timed. They were walking into the stadium as I was walking to that end of the field. And I whistle really loud with my fingers. And my daughter said, "Mom, I heard your whistle, but thought there's no way that could be my mom," because she knew I was working the Super Bowl. And she said, "I turned around and you're pointing at us." And it was just a moment. But as far as when the game got kicked off, Cathy, it's a game. It's football. And we were ready for it.
Go and do the whistle now. Oh. That's amazing. How do you do that? I want to do that.
my kids sort of can do it too. My son can, my daughter's learning, but I learned it when I was in 8th grade. One of my dear friends, her dad would do that, and everybody knew whenever Coach Ferris whistled, and then Carmen, she could do it. I was like, teach me. And so she taught me, and for
How old
about,
were you in 8th grade?
oh, heavens, Betsy. I don't know, 13 maybe. Yeah.
Right. So did it all start there then? The kind of strong woman you are with that whistle?
No, I was already that strong woman, Cathy.
Well, look, you've broken the glass ceiling many times in your career, but does it surprise you there aren't more women like you doing what you're doing? Why do you think that is?
I don't know, Cathy. I really cannot speak for anyone else. I don't know why. But I know that the glass ceiling has been shattered. I like to call it the grass ceiling because it's turf that I play on.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So I think now Billie Jean King said it. She tweeted it out, seeing it, believing it, and you can do it. And there's just that, there's the possibility now. So I never was raised or thought that because I was a girl, I couldn't do something. I just didn't ever let it hold me back.
You're listening to The Ladder on Times Radio with me, Cathy Newman. Joining me this week, the first woman to officiate in a Super Bowl game and the first full-time female official in NFL history, Sarah Thomas. Stay with us as she's about to share her advice on how to get up the ladder. So looking back at your younger self, you obviously had lots of strong women around you, mentors, you had people who basically said you can do anything. What advice would you give now to your younger self?
Don't change a thing. Not at
That's
all.
great.
I say this all the time too about the world we live in now where everybody gets a trophy. And I just think you have to fall down. You have to fail. I tell my children all the time, I want you to fail at something. I just don't want you to like the taste of it. You've got to learn that there's defeat in life and you can handle yourself with grace and dignity. Just look in the mirror and evaluate why you failed and get back up and do it again. But I would tell myself not to change a thing because all of those forks in the road when I took the left instead of the right, there may have been roadblocks, but I just look at them as speed bumps. And as soon as you can put them in your rearview mirror, that rearview mirror is so small compared to your windshield. And if you're constantly focused on what's behind you, it's one small area of your life. But if you will look through the windshield, there's so much more opportunity for you to grow.
I love the idea of roadblocks being mere speed bumps. I love that. I'm going to just put my foot down and go now.
That's right.
So what would be your advice to girls who fear failure then? Because you're saying, you've got to fail. You've got to learn how to fail and fail better effectively. But a lot of girls do fear failure, don't they?
They do. And I think a lot of people do. But I have a daughter and it's just, I would just say, you've got to push yourself or don't be afraid to take a risk at something just because it's out of the norm. And if you get told no, again, Cathy, I go back, it's not a roadblock, it's a speed bump, and you will prevail and you will get over it. Just don't give up. Don't give up.
Do you go slowly over the speed bump or do you just accelerate?
Accelerate.
Never mind.
I say this, Cathy, I want to find a solution. If there's an issue, I want to get it resolved and find the solution to get it resolved to keep moving forward.
And you've said that the NFL did the right thing on equal pay. How would you advise girls, women to approach this issue to ensure that they're treated equally?
Understand that when you do professionally challenge someone as far as equal pay, you have had to have earned the right to say so. And if you know right off the bat that you have earned that right and your chair is at the boardroom table already with all the men, then you have got to say something or you forever be run over and forgotten or used and mistreated. And if that guy that is keeping you from being equally paid or that female, which I can imagine, but then sooner or later, he's probably going to depart because he's only hiding behind a title. So just put the gas to the floor, right? The pedal to the metal.
I like that, pedal to the metal. And you said earlier about how, you had some choice words for people who treated you in a way that you didn't approve of, but also you said you didn't look for confrontation. How would you advise someone who's staring sexism in the face to take that on?
I would ask them to look at the person that's doing that and say, why don't you share with me your thoughts on why you feel this way? Not necessarily would you treat a male counterpart like this, just share with me your thought process on why you feel this way and see what he says. And then understand that you can come back very professionally, and I could promise you he'll want to have probably swallowed the words that just came out of his mouth.
And finally, you've had some brilliant advice all the way through this, but this is the difficult bit. 3 words of advice for girls, women, anyone looking to climb the ladder.
Never give up.
It's great. Brilliant. And you know what? It's really interesting because so many women, we ask everybody we speak to every week the same question. And I've noticed that there's variations on that theme about perseverance, determination, and I can see that in spades with you. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for joining us on the ladder.
Thank you.